There is a salesperson who came to your home or is planning to, and there is a federal law that gives you 3 business days to change your mind about anything they sell you. No penalty. No reason required. Full refund. Most people in that living room have never heard of it. The companies doing the selling are counting on that. And here is the part that surprises people most. If the seller didn't hand you the right paperwork at the time of the sale, your 3-day window may not have started yet. It may still be open right now. There is a letter, it costs you the price of a stamp, that invokes this right and puts the legal obligation back on the seller. I wrote hundreds of them in 30 years of consumer protection law. Tonight, you are going to know exactly what it says, when to send it, and what the law requires to happen after it arrives. My name is Paul Mercer. Before I get into the specifics, I want to be clear about something. What I'm sharing here is general legal information based on 30 years of consumer protection practice. It is not legal advice for your specific situation. Laws vary by state. If you have a complex case or a high-dollar transaction, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. I'm not your lawyer. I'm the lawyer who's going to show you what your rights actually say, so that when you need them, you already know. That said, the right I'm about to describe is federal law. It applies in all 50 states, and the seller was required to tell you about it. If they didn't, that is not a technicality. That is a violation. Let me start with how we got here, because the story behind this law tells you everything about why it exists. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, armies of door-to-door salespeople were working American neighborhoods with techniques specifically designed to overwhelm your judgment. Encyclopedias, vacuum cleaners, home improvement services, alarm systems. The salesperson didn't knock and leave a card, they asked to come in. They sat down in your living room, and they were trained to close on the first visit. To get a signature before you could talk to your spouse, check the price, or compare any alternatives. Congress looked at that and saw a structural problem. In a store, you can walk out. On the phone, you can hang up. But in your own home, with someone sitting across from you, you are in a different position. The Federal Trade Commission put it directly. The consumer finds it difficult to extricate themselves from the situation. So in 1972, the FTC enacted the Cooling-Off Rule, 16 C.F.R. Part 429, a trade regulation rule promulgated under FTC Act Section 5. The rule says this: if a salesperson comes to your home, your workplace, your dormitory, or sets up at a hotel conference room or any temporary location and sells you something for more than $25, you have 3 business days to cancel that sale. The contract is voidable. The seller must give you a full refund within 10 business days. They must return any trade-in. They must cancel any promissory note or negotiable instrument. No penalty for canceling, no reason required, no explanation owed to anyone. That rule has been in force for over 50 years, and the seller who came to your door this week was required to know about it and required to tell you. First, let me tell you about a client I worked with in the last years of my practice. She was a home health aide in her early 50s, careful with money, cautious by nature. A sales team came to her door one afternoon and spent 2 hours explaining why the solar panels she put on her roof would eliminate her electricity bill. They had a financing presentation. They had numbers on a tablet. She signed that day. By the time she called me, 4 months had passed. She was locked into a 30-year loan at terms she hadn't fully understood, and nobody had told her she had 72 hours, 3 business days to walk away. What I had to tell her was difficult. She'd missed the window. Not because the law failed her, because nobody told her the window existed. The direct selling industry, that is the technical name for companies that sell to you at home or at temporary locations, generates over $40 billion a year in the United States. In recent years, the fastest-growing category in that industry has been residential solar, and the FTC received over 5,000 complaints containing the phrase solar panels in less than 9 months in 2023 alone. That is up 746% since 2018. When 3 federal agencies, the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the U.S. Department of Treasury, announce a joint interagency partnership to police an industry, the problem is not hypothetical. That announcement came in August of 2024. Here is the economic logic underneath it. A door-to-door solar company, or a home security company, or a home improvement contractor using the same model operates on one central assumption. The sale closes on the day of the visit, and it stays closed. Every customer who exercises their cancellation right represents a lost sale. The cooling-off rule's disclosure requirement is not optional. It is not a courtesy. It is mandatory under federal law. But enforcement is complaint-driven. The FTC does not send inspectors to check whether salespeople are handing out cancellation forms. The rule only triggers consequences when consumers invoke it. A major door-to-door solar company agreed to pay over $4 million to settle allegations in multiple counties. Allegations that included misrepresenting customers' ability to cancel contracts. Connecticut's Attorney General filed its third enforcement action against a solar company in a single category in 2024. When an Attorney General reaches case number 3 in one category, in one state, they are not responding to isolated incidents. They are responding to a pattern. I'm not telling you every salesperson who has come to your door is acting in bad faith. Most of them are working a job, following a script, chasing a quota. The problem is that the script was written by a system that profits from the gap between what you know and what you're legally entitled to do. The disclosure requirement has been federal law since 1972, over 50 years, and the majority of consumers who invite a salesperson into their living room still don't know they have the right to change their mind. Under 16 C.F.R. Part 429, the seller has two specific obligations at the time of the sale. First, they must orally inform you of your right to cancel, in person, at the time of the sale. Second, they must hand you 2 completed copies of a written cancellation form, a notice of cancellation, at the time of the sale. Not later, not in the mail, at the time of the sale. The 3-day clock doesn't start until both of those things happen. A signed contract does not start your clock if the seller didn't give you the form. If they shook your hand, took your signature, and walked out the door without handing you that cancellation notice, your 3 days have not started. The legal position, grounded in the rule's own mechanics, is that your window may still be open. Think back to the last door-to-door sale you signed. Did the salesperson hand you a form titled Notice of Cancellation? 2 copies? Did they explain to you in person that you could cancel? If the answer is no, the clock may not have started. One more protection that is often overlooked. The notice of cancellation and the contract itself must be written in the same language that was used in the oral sales presentation. That requirement is in the regulation. 16 C.F.R. Section 429.1a.6. If a salesperson presented to you in Spanish, the cancellation form must be in Spanish. An English-only form delivered after a Spanish-language presentation is a defective notice. The CFPB specifically documented this pattern in solar sales and called it a deceptive practice. If this applies to you or someone you know, it matters. Before I walk you through the letter, I want to tell you where this right doesn't apply. The FTC Cooling-Off Rule covers in-person sales made at your home, workplace, or the seller's temporary location. It does not cover online sales. It does not cover telephone orders. It does not cover purchases you made at the seller's permanent business location, a store, a showroom, their office. It does not cover real estate, insurance, or securities. It does not cover sales under $25 at your home or under $130 at a temporary location. There is an exception for emergency repairs. If your furnace stopped working in January, you called a contractor, and they came to fix an emergency, the cancellation right may not apply. The rule is designed for sales you didn't seek out. There are contractors who manufacture the appearance of an emergency, who knock on your door, warn you about a problem with your roof or gutter, and then claim their induced urgency qualifies as an emergency repair exemption. That is a misuse of the exception. But if the emergency was real and you made the call, be careful. Check your state as well. The federal rule is the floor. In some states, the floor is considerably higher. Here is the move. And it costs you the price of a stamp. Under 16 C.F.R. Part 429, you have 3 business days from the date of the sale to cancel. Be precise about business days, because sellers use urgency language to create false pressure. Saturday counts as a business day under this rule. Sunday does not. Federal holidays do not. So if you signed on a Friday, your 3 business days are Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday. The deadline is midnight on Tuesday. If you signed on Thursday and the following Monday is a federal holiday, your days are Friday, Saturday, and the following Tuesday. The cancellation is effective when you mail it, not when the seller receives it. A letter postmarked by midnight of the 3rd business day meets the deadline even if the company doesn't receive it for 2 days. This is in the rule. It is not a loophole. It is the law. Send the letter by certified mail with return receipt requested. Keep the green card. Keep the receipt. That green card is your proof that you acted within the window. Regular mail eliminates your ability to prove timely delivery. Certified mail is the difference between a legal cancellation and a word-against-word dispute with a seller who has no incentive to acknowledge your letter arrived on time. Now let me walk you through the letter itself. If the seller gave you a cancellation form, the one they were required to hand you, fill it out, sign it, and send it certified mail. If they did not give you the form, you write your own. It does not need to be a legal document. It does not need to be notarized. Any written statement of your intent to cancel is sufficient under the rule. Here is the structure. At the top, write the date. Below it, the seller's name and the address from the contract. The subject line should read, Notice of Cancellation. In the body include 4 things: the date of the transaction, a brief description of what was sold, residential solar installation agreement or home security system and monitoring contract, or whatever applies, your name and address, and then a clear, simple statement. I am exercising my right to cancel this transaction under the FTC Cooling-Off Rule, 16 C.F.R. Part 429. This notice is sent within the applicable cancellation period. Then add this. Please cancel the contract, cease all further billing or delivery, and return all payments and any trade-in property within 10 business days as required by federal law. Sign your name. Do not add anything else. Do not apologize. Do not explain your reasons. You do not owe the seller an explanation. The right is unconditional. Send it certified mail. Keep the return receipt. Keep a copy of the letter. That is it. 1 letter, 1 stamp, certified mail. Once the seller receives that letter, they have 10 business days to return every dollar you paid, return any trade-in property, and cancel and return any promissory note or negotiable instrument. 10 business days. That is a federal deadline. Now here's what to do if they don't comply. First, file a complaint at reportfraud.ftc.gov. That goes directly into the FTC's enforcement system. Your complaint, combined with others about the same company, builds the pattern record that the FTC uses to prioritize investigations. Second, file a complaint with your state attorney general's Consumer Protection Division. State AGs have concurrent enforcement authority over the same practices under their own consumer protection statutes. And in many states, those statutes give you something the FTC Act does not: a private right of action. The individual consumer can sue. In Texas, the same cancellation right exists under state law through the Business and Commerce Code, and violations of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act allow you to sue for triple damages on knowing or intentional violations. In Pennsylvania, the Home Improvement Consumer Protection Act adds its own mandatory requirements for home improvement contracts over $500, and HICPA violations are also Pennsylvania UTPCPL violations, with civil and criminal exposure. In California, if you are over 65 years old, your cancellation window is 5 business days, not 3. California Civil Code Section 1689.6. If you signed a home repair contract after a disaster declaration in California, your window is 7 business days under Section 1689.7 of the Civil Code. In Florida, if the sale involved a timeshare, you have 10 calendar days to cancel, not 3 business days. Florida Statutes Section 721.10. In Nevada, the timeshare window is 5 calendar days. New York gives health club members 15 days to cancel a gym contract. The federal rule does not cover gym memberships specifically. New York General Business Law Section 623 does. Most gym sales staff will not mention this. In most states, the federal law is the floor. No state can give you less than the federal right on covered transactions. But several states give you more. I'll put a resource in the description so you can check the specific rules in your state. Here is something that surprises even attorneys who don't practice in this area regularly. If you have refinanced your home, not bought it for the first time, but refinanced an existing mortgage, or taken out a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, the Truth in Lending Act, 15 U.S.C. Section 1635, gave you a separate cancellation right. 3 business days from closing to rescind the transaction entirely. The security interest is voided. Every dollar you paid at closing comes back. Under 15 U.S.C. Section 1635F, if the lender did not properly deliver the required notice to you, your 3-day window does not apply. Your window becomes 3 years. Here is what properly deliver means. At the time of closing, your lender was required to give each borrower on the loan 2 copies of a notice of right to rescind. Not 1 copy shared between spouses, 2 copies per borrower. Along with all material TILA disclosures, the APR, the finance charge, the amount financed, the total of payments, the payment schedule. The 3-day clock does not begin until all of that has been properly delivered. If any piece was missing, if you each received 1 copy instead of 2, if the disclosures were incomplete, your 3-day window may never have started. What does that mean in practice? If you refinanced your home within the last 3 years and you're not certain you received those forms properly, that question is worth investigating. The Supreme Court addressed the mechanics of this right directly in 2015. A homeowner in Minnesota sent a written letter to their mortgage servicer on the last day of the 3-year window, 3 years to the day from their 2007 refinancing, stating their intention to rescind under TILA. The servicer said, "You needed to file a lawsuit, not just write a letter." The case went to the Supreme Court. The vote was 9-0. Justice Scalia wrote the opinion. TILA's plain language, he wrote, leaves no doubt that rescission is effected when the borrower notifies the creditor of his intention to rescind. A letter is sufficient. No lawsuit required. That is Jesinoski versus Countrywide Home Loans, Incorporated, 574 U.S. 259, decided in 2015. 9 justices. Unanimous. The TILA right of rescission does not apply to a purchase mortgage. If you used a loan to buy your home for the first time, this cancellation right does not apply to that original transaction. Congress was explicit. The right is for refinances, home equity loans, and home equity lines of credit, not the initial purchase. It also does not apply in the same way if you refinanced with the same lender and no new money was advanced, a pure rate and term refinance with no cash out. That situation may fall under an exception in Regulation Z. If you believe you may have grounds to rescind a mortgage, talk to a consumer protection attorney before sending any letter. The mechanics of a mortgage rescission, returning loan proceeds, getting a lien released, timing the sequence correctly, benefit significantly from professional guidance. The right exists. The procedure is real. But at that scale, the process has steps that go beyond a 2-paragraph letter. The 3-year window closes the moment you sell the property. Once the property is sold, the right is gone. It ties to the property, not to you. That is 15 U.S.C. Section 1635F, and the clock on both ends is real. Some sellers will ignore your cancellation letter. They will claim you missed the window. They will claim the emergency exception applies. They will say the contract is binding. Under the FTC Act, each violation of a trade regulation rule, including the Cooling-Off Rule, carries a civil penalty of $51,744 per violation as of 2024. That is the inflation-adjusted figure. The seller knows that number. Under your state's consumer protection statute, in most states, failing to comply with the cancellation right may also give you a private right of action. In Texas, knowing violations allow you to seek triple damages. In California, the Unfair Competition Law and the Consumer Legal Remedies Act both create avenues for private enforcement. In Pennsylvania, the UTPCPL allows private suits. A consumer protection attorney in your state can tell you what remedies are available to you specifically. Here is the math in plain terms. The cost of the cancellation letter, 1 sheet of paper and certified mail. As of 2024, a certified mail letter with return receipt costs under $10. That is your total investment in the most powerful move the law gives you after a high-pressure in-home sale. The alternative? Whatever is on the contract you signed. In the solar industry, the CFPB documented dealer fees adding 20 to 30% to the loan amount. On a $30,000 solar installation, that can be $7,500 hidden inside the loan total, presented in light print next to a highlighted, estimated net cost after tax credits figure that makes the actual loan amount harder to see. The CFPB documented that practice and called it deceptive. In my 30 years of practice, the most expensive thing I watched clients do was nothing. They sat on a contract they had doubts about. They talked themselves out of canceling because they assumed the window had closed, or that they'd need an attorney to invoke the right, or that the company would just ignore the letter anyway. Most of those assumptions were wrong, and every one of those clients would have been better off with a $10 certified letter. Let me tell you about a second client, someone who came to me through a legal aid referral. He was a school administrator in his mid-40s. His roof had been inspected after a storm, and a home improvement contractor had come to the house, assessed the damage, and closed him on a contract the same afternoon. The contract included a large upfront payment. He had doubts the next morning. He called the contractor to cancel. The contractor told him, "You signed, so you're committed." That's not how the law works. This client was still within his 3-day window. He sent the certified letter. He kept the return receipt. Within 10 business days, he had his money back. The contractor's position was not based on law. It was based on the assumption that the client believed a signed contract was irrevocable. Under federal law, for covered transactions, it is not. Not for 3 business days. And possibly not for considerably longer if they failed to give you the form. People assume that even if they were wronged, fighting back means hiring a lawyer, spending money they don't have, and waiting years for a result. In many situations covered by this rule, that is not true. The cancellation procedure is designed to work without legal representation. The letter is enough. The burden shifts to the seller to comply. If they don't, the complaint mechanisms are free. The attorney's fee provisions in state UDAP statutes are designed so that a consumer protection attorney can take a strong case without asking you for a retainer. Here is the complete action plan. 1. After any in-person sale, check whether you received a written notice of cancellation at the time of signing. 2 copies. Were you told orally that you had the right to cancel? If the answer to either question is no, the clock may not have started. 2. If you are within the window, calculate your 3 business days correctly. Saturday counts. Sunday does not. Federal holidays do not. The deadline is midnight of the 3rd business day. 3. Write the letter. Date. Seller name and address. Notice of cancellation. Date of transaction. Description of purchase. Your name and address. I am exercising my right to cancel under the FTC Cooling-Off Rule, 16 C.F.R. Part 429. Please cancel the contract and return all payments within 10 business days as required by federal law. Sign it. 4. Send it certified mail with return receipt. Keep everything. 5. If they don't comply within 10 business days, file with the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov and with your state attorney general. In most states, you also have a private right of action. If you refinanced a home in the last 3 years, check whether you received 2 copies of the Notice of Right to Rescind for each borrower on the loan. If you're not sure, that question is worth a consultation with a consumer protection attorney. Many consumer protection attorneys offer free consultations and take TILA cases on contingency. Tell me in the comments what state you're in and what brought you here. A solar pitch? A home improvement contractor? A door-to-door visit of some kind? I read every one. If there is a specific situation coming up repeatedly, it may be the next video. Next time, I am going to walk you through a related right that very few consumers know applies to gym memberships, health club contracts, and certain subscription services, and how the calculation works in a handful of states where the window is 15 days, not 3. That one surprises people too. They're counting on you not knowing. Now you know. Take care.